I bought a analog summing mixer. It's kind of like a chunk of a real console, and it so now I send everything out to analog, goes in the analog summing mixer, and it comes back stereo, and that's my mix. And it, I don't know exactly why it works the way it works, but it sounds better. Things have more depth, and there's more clarity between the instruments and everything, and it sounds wider and deeper. It just sounds good. There's some analog magic going on there. I'm really, really happy that I did this and moved from the in the box to hybrid format. Yeah. So
Nice. Analog is always king, I think. As like a fan of vinyl, like I've always preferred analog. There's definitely some in digital. There's definitely a lot of benefits using
mhm,
that, obviously.
mhm.
So you don't have to like cut tape or any shit like that. But yeah, for sure. Well, Randy Burns, thank
Anyway,
you so much for joining me here today. Legendary producer. We're about to get into it. Thank you so much for taking the time out again. Now, was producing something you were always trying to get into? Did you want to be a musician first and like a rock star and then end up becoming a producer?
yeah, exactly. I was playing in an original band in St. Louis, Missouri, and uh, we all decided that we would move to California to be rock stars, and we did move, and that band kind of didn't go anywhere. I ended up playing Orange County clubs for a while. It was a pretty decent club scene down there,
What did you play?
and I played guitar.
Cool.
And later, I uh, worked with one of the singers that was in that band, Linda Schultz, and we we recorded a bunch of originals, and we worked on songwriting and came close to getting some deals a couple of times, but it's usual music business stuff. It just didn't work out. Um, in fact, the situation was Mark Drubet was our drummer, and he quit our original band under management to join Survivor. And then the management company wanted to sue Mark for breach of contract, and I told him no fucking way. He's doing what we wanted to do, and I'm happy for him. And then so they got unhappy with me and booted us off the management deal. And I immediately moved to Hollywood and got a gig as a second engineer. So
Cool. Now, the band you were talking about that you were in, what was it called?
that one was called Minaj. And but it was Linda was in another band with me that played a lot in Orange County called Dame. And we had two female singers, and we did Heart, and because the girls could sing high, we did Journey and Zeppelin and lots of things like that. And it was a lot of fun. We had a good time down there.
Cool, cool. Were you like more into classic rock before you were playing more metal stuff? Like how did you get into heavy metal?
Totally by accident. I mean, it was just the way the things unfolded. The very first real record I did was a compilation of punk bands, which included Social Distortion, 45 Grave, a band called Modern Warfare, Super Heroines, a whole bunch of bands from the LA area, some of which went on to do a lot. But the two guys who put it together, Steve Sinclair and Ron Gowdy, both went on to be record execs. Steve at First Combat, and then Ron went to Enigma. And both of them signed lots of bands and gave me lots of work. So it was really that um, doing that record with Steve and Ron and having it be very successful, and it sounds great. And we did it in my our little 8-track studio. We had a Tascam 8-track in a storefront, and But anyway, the album came out good and we had success with that. So they kept coming back to me and yeah, I just started, getting to work with really good bands and it just evolved from there. So
Are you still in like contact with any of those label execs that you used to work with back in the day?
no, Ron passed away a few years ago. Steve, Steve, we chatted on Facebook a little bit, but like maybe 10 years ago, but then he just kind of went dark. So I don't know what's going on with Steve. He doesn't reply to people. A number of people have contacted me from Enigma and other places looking for Steve and going, do you know how to get a hold of him? And I said, no, just Facebook, but he doesn't respond. So I don't know.
Yeah,
So anyway,
retirement.
I'd love to hear from Steve, but we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, probably kicking back on a beach somewhere. Who knows? But how do you recall your transition from working with small labels to major labels?
Well, I actually didn't do that much work for the major labels. Most of the work I did was for the independent labels like Combat in particular. Combat was um, Megadeth, um, Death, Possessed, Dark Angel. All those bands were came to me via Combat Records, Nuclear Assault. Um, but once I did Megadeth, then I started getting into major labels and some international stuff, Creator and so forth. So, but the majority of my work actually was with Combat and other small labels uh, before I did the Megadeth thing. So,
Yeah, which is very classic. Peace Cells is one of the biggest albums, like metal albums ever. Like how did you even get that gig producing for Megadeth?
um, actually, I was taking a break from working in as a recording engineer and a producer, and I was going to school and studying computer science. And so Steve called me up. Steve Sinclair called me, and he said, "I have this band, and you have to produce them. You're the only guy. You've got to go do it." And I was like living, in Antelope Valley with my parents and just, doing calculus and stuff like that. And but it was a nice break. Anyway, I came back into town and um, went to a rehearsal and they played through their set. And I quit school, got an apartment in Hollywood, did the record, you know, the rest is
Yeah.
history, that kind of thing. Um, no,
Yeah.
it was Steve Sinclair. So I really owe a huge debt to Steve Sinclair. Had it not been for Steve and Ron, I don't know what would have happened. In between Steve and Ron, I did one really big record, which was I engineered the Suicidal Tendencies record, the first one with Institutionalized.
Yep.
And that was Lisa Fancher at Frontier. Um, she had Christian Death, and I really wanted to do Christian Death, but another guy got that. And but she gave me Suicidal, and it turned out really good. So the Megadeth boy said, if um, you did Suicidal, you're good enough for us. That was their comment about that.
Did you know of Megadeth before this?
No, no,
No. So you went in
no.
completely blind at rehearsal.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And and it was the only time in my entire career where I walked in, I heard the band and went, "Holy shit, this is going to be a hit record. This is it. This is the big one. This is, the big opportunity, and this is going to go somewhere." And I was right. But um,
You just knew it right away.
I knew it in before they finished the set in that rehearsal room up there. So and it became obvious as we went through the recording process. It was just so exciting to be in the studio with those guys. They just came off a tour and they were absolutely on fire. and they would go out and play this stuff, and it would just be so exciting to hear it in the control room. It's like it was fun. We knew it was something special, and it was.
For sure, man. Like I can't even imagine what that could have been like. What was your first impression of the guys when you first met them?
Um, they all seem reasonable, nice guys to me, and they're all good. Um, I got along well with all of them, so there was no issues there.
Yeah, I know famously on record there was a lot of drug use during that time and in the studio. Was that ever an issue when recording Megadeth?
Um, these guys were doing drugs, and Gar and Chris were doing heroin, and it was only an issue on a few days when they couldn't score or they didn't have money to score, and then as soon as they got the drugs, we were off and running again. So literally, it was just a couple of mornings that we got a little bit of a late start because I didn't feel good. So uh, they're very high functioning. They just, yeah, there was no problem with the performance or anything like that. So,
Yeah, I've heard. It's funny enough, people think drugs might hurt the performance, but if anything, I think it's just really alcohol that can really, hurt a recording process.
I think drummers are particularly sensitive, but I mean, heroin was like, I don't know, the jazz folks back in the 30s and 40s, the so many of them were hooked up with heroin, and they did all of that, just breathtaking, famous stuff. So, um, yeah, it wasn't a problem. Just like I said, a couple of mornings we started late. That's it.
I
Yeah.
know there's you were talking about jazz. I know there's this jazz album. I'm blanking on who it is, but it's he's literally has his arms out and is showing off his bruises. Um kind of almost to flex and show off. It was a massive thing. So the Chris Poland jazz connection definitely does make some sense there. Was that ever an issue with like, doing all these metal bands? Because especially in like the 80s, a lot of those guys were like smoking weed, doing a ton of drugs. Or was it more of the bigger bands?
Um, Most of the bands were good in the studio because they were up and coming. They had small budgets. We had to be really efficient in the studio, and they took it real seriously. So nobody showed up, hammered or unable to do their job. That just didn't happen. Um, Later on, the drugs and alcohol affected me quite a bit because I was sort of gradually becoming more of an alcoholic, and um, doing some amphetamines, and to keep awake during the sessions, to keep alert. And I was able to function, but I think the mixes most of all suffered because all of those drugs affect your judgment and your ability to make good decisions. So I made decisions in mixing that were not good. So, but that's me personally. That was my issue. So,
Well, you were around so much of it too, like just so much chaos. So it must have been hard to kind of just stay focused and be like, you know what? I'm just going to do this sober and just do my job. So I don't, it must have been so, I can't even imagine being around all that, but Peace Cells, I think is one of the greatest thrash metal album up there with Rust in Peace. Do you have that any that come to mind? Any like particular like favorite memories of recording that record?
um, well, there's a lot of them. There was just the tracking. I think we booked 4 days at Music Grinder to do the basic tracks, and all we were really looking for was a drum performance. But the whole band went up there and played, and um, Yeah, it was just incredibly exciting to hear them do that stuff. And Gar was such a dynamic drummer and such an incredible musician. He would go, and if you listen to it, there's one section will have one tempo and feel, and then he'll just transition into a different tempo and feel, and it's just perfect. And he would do it over and over and over, and just it was awesome. It was really exciting. Then of course, um, I was totally blown away by Chirs Poland. Um, he was just such a talent, and his that was a little bit of tension between me and Dave Mustaine, is that it was obvious that I was, like infatuated with Chris's playing. I mean, it just he has this beautiful tone and this legato thing, and he just and everything's so melodic, and uh, Dave not so much. Dave was, more typical metal
Like
guy.
shredding.
Although his overall composition was very, very good. Um, he resented my uh, paying attention to Chris so much, So
And you're
he he uh, his comment was, "You've got Polonitis. I've seen this before. I know what this is about."
you're
And
not the only one.
yeah, I wasn't the only one. Yeah. So,
That's awesome,
and
man.
I feel incredibly fortunate to have done Chris's solo album, the Return to Metalopolis. I
So
mean,
underrated.
it's a well, we're going to put it out next year again. Chris is going to come out with a book, a biography, and he's going to release the new mixes of Return to Metalopolis, either the ones we did earlier this year or the ones that I'm going to do shortly. Um,
Yeah, he was
but I've got a new room too. I was mixing in one room. It was just a big room in the house, and now I've got a proper mixing room in my what used to be my garage. But it's designed by a studio designer, and it's really nice. So and I've got my analog gear. Um, I got more analog gear from Dean Roberts in Leatherwolf.
cool.
He's got a really nice studio in his garage, and he ran out of rack spaces for some things that he didn't use anymore, and he just gave them to me. So I've got like a Pultec style EQ, and I got a distressor, and a Mercury mic preamp. They're all really nice stuff to go along with my other analog gear. So um, anyway, um,
What software do you use?
I just use Pro Tools.
Pro
Yeah,
Tools? Yeah.
subscription.
That's like
And
industry standard, I think, right?
yes,
Yeah.
uh, pretty much. There's a lot of Mac guys just use Logic, but I think more people use Pro Tools. I think that's the big one.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Chirs Poland stuff's very exciting. One of my favorite guitarists of all time. So it's so cool that you're working with him still. Um when um you recorded Peace Cells, um did you stay in touch with him
With
after the
Chris,
recording? Yes, with Chris.
uh, not immediately, but he got booted out of the band, and I don't know all the details. Chris has told me a couple things, but
It's
we never.
it's just Dave BS, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He said he got in a fight with Dave, but anyway,
Yeah.
he got booted out of the band, and then got this solo record deal, and he called me up and said he wanted me to do it. So, um, and we've touched bases a few times. I went to LA in 2014 to get some 2-inch transferred to digital. It was for my old roommate, Ivy Nay. We did some demos, and we actually had Cliff Martinez and Flea and myself on the rhythm track on a couple of them. And before they were Chili Peppers, like kind of like right before. And so anyway, we wanted to get that stuff and digitize. And I went to visit him. Um, but uh, we talk pretty often now. We're we're in touch, and
Great guy. Great guy.
he is. He's a really nice
I've
guy.
met him in person, and he was on the podcast. Just such a one of the most down to earth, nicest people. I love Chris so much. Now, you mentioned playing, and I know you do keys as well, if I'm
Mhm.
not
A little
mistaken.
bit, yeah.
A little bit. Did that ever come in handy? That or a guitar, like when doing an album where you actually had to jump on a guitar, jump on keys, and record something?
Yeah, yeah. I did a few uh solos on some. There was a punk band called the Pontiac Brothers, and again, Frontier Records with Lisa Fancher, who's tremendous, by the way. I'm just so enamored with her and impressed with her career. Um, anyway, Lisa had this band called the Pontiac Brothers, and I did a couple albums with them, and it was they kind of sound like the Stones, only a little more edgy punk style, a little more alt. And they did a parody of a metal song and asked me to play the solo, and I said sure. And
You
what
improvise
I
it?
did, it was I just picked up the guitar and played something. Yeah, it came out really good. So um, it's a pretty generic solo, but it had the feel to it. Anyway, and keyboards, I've done a few things. Um, I did a little bit with Creator. I did the intro for Possessed. It comes up here and there. But
Exorcist, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
the on the guitar stuff though, the metal guys, I didn't do anything there. I did get Chris to play a couple of solos on my old Les Paul though. So
That
and
is,
and
oh, Chris
and
on a Les Paul.
he can make anything sound good. We
Yeah,
we actually did some of the recording we did with a Rockman, if you know what that is, straight into the board.
I don't.
It's it's a little transistor thing that you can like hang on your belt, and it has batteries, and
Oh
it's a
yeah,
preamp.
yeah.
Tom Schultz from Boston created it, and it's got one sound, but Chirs Poland in that one sound is like a different thing. And yeah, some of the stuff on P cells is a Rockman.
Yeah, Chris also like Ohm. Like I have to just like his jazz stuff is infusion is just absolutely incredible. Are you like a jazz infusion guy at all?
um a little bit. I was a huge fan of Alan Holsworth, and I got to work with Alan on a Jean-Luc Ponty record, if you know who he is.
Cool. Yes.
He's the
Yeah.
the violin guy, and so he came in, and I was in the studio for 4 days, tracking with Jean-Luc, and Alan was there, and I actually got to record some solos with him and stuff, and it was just me and him in the room. It was pretty magic. But anyway, I know a few people, but I wouldn't say I'm a big guy over there, but I know a little bit about it, and I like that stuff. I like a lot of things. I'm really into Americana and certain bluegrass kinds of things, and old country and outlaw country, and so I'm kind of all over the place with that stuff.
Yeah, I agree, man. And I can relate like that outlaw country stuff so good, like the Highwaymen and whatnot, some of the
Right.
best. And it's just kind of unfortunate that the crap country that comes out today kind of overshadows that stuff because it's like a whole nother genre, I think.
It is. It is. It is. The commercial. I don't know. It's almost like fake country.
It's
It's
like
just
pop
like
country,
yeah, yeah, yeah. The bro guys with the fake accent, and
solo
all the songs
cups.
about all the all the songs about pickup trucks and mama and the river and the flag and whatever. It's just stupid.
So
There
dumb,
are
man.
some really good artists here and there though. There's some female artists I really like. I like Maren Morris a lot. Especially some of her early stuff was really good. Anyway, the alt country is much richer and a much more the composition's better, the songs are better, you know. Yeah, I'm into like Nikki Lane and Lucinda Williams and even Holly Williams, who's um, 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 well, I'm having a moment here. Anyway, Hank Williams' granddaughter, Holly
Yes.
Williams,
Yeah.
and she's really really good. And so anyway, there's a bunch
I'll
of
check
artists
her
here.
out.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Hollywood. Look up a song called "Drinking."
Okay.
Drink.
Yeah. All
It,
right.
it's just it's awesome.
I'll
So
check that
anyway,
out, man. Yeah, for
so
sure. And I used to work for iHeart and I used to do their country station.
mm,
And I used to work with some of the artists that the station would promote, and you'd hear them do a gig and they'd have that country accent. And then you'd meet them or talk to them after in the green room, and they have like a New England accent. They've got like a Boston. I'm like, are you kidding me, man? But it's ridiculous. Would you ever produce like an album or like an artist that's not metal, like maybe that does like uh rock or country or whatever? Or do you kind of just like to stick to certain genres?
well, I did a lot of metal because those were the people who wanted me to do their records. It's like once they had a track record there, then all the thrash or many of the thrash metal bands up and coming said, "Oh yeah, yeah, we want Randy Burns." So I it was just the that's what I was doing. I actually tried to do other things and was not real successful at it. Um,
Any
one of the bands
examples?
I did, Jet Boy.
Yes.
I did some demos for Jet Boy, and I can't remember the guy's
Didn't you
name.
do The Great Cat?
No, I didn't.
No?
No.
No. Oh, I thought there was some kind of connection there. Um,
Well, she asked me to do an album for her in the 80s and I said
all
no.
right. I was half
She
right.
she was really not happy about it and really told me you're gonna regret this for the rest of your life. Okay. Like that was the right decision, I think, Anyway,
Uh, I think I heard
she's
that
still
story
around.
somewhere.
She's still
Yeah.
around. So
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe give her
good for
another
her.
shot, potentially.
Good for her. Yeah, yeah. Um, well, right now I'm just mixing. I have this mixing room in my house, and um,
Cool.
I can take as long as I want on stuff. So um, the last couple of years I've been just getting better at it and working at it, and um, I really feel like I'm there now. So I'm looking for work. So we got
Yeah.
a lot of the work I've been getting is DIY bands who go to small studios or record stuff themselves, and then to give it to me, and I can kind of elevate that by giving them a good mix. It can really, really make a big difference there. And so that's what I expect to get a lot of work for. And I just finished another song for a band called Nemesis out of Houston. They're really
Oh
good,
yeah.
young
Yeah.
thrash metal
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah, they're
Young, you know
great.
who they are? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I do. Houston
They're
has a
really
great thrash scene right now.
yeah. Well, those guys are great. I love them. I love that band, and they're all like I think the oldest one's 20. I don't think any of them can buy beer legally, or So, yeah, they're very young and very good. So, it's great to work with them. Um, I delivered the stuff last night, so it's
Cool.
coming out soon. It's coming out soon. the new single. We did one about a year ago, and now they're working on like 6 songs, so I'm real excited about that.
I'll circle back to this at the end of the episode, but in terms of commissions, do you have like a website or is there a proper email to reach out to?
Um, they can find me on Facebook as Randy Burns producer, um, and Randy Burns music at gmail.com. Those are both good. So,
Cool.
and
Awesome. Awesome. Well, definitely, man, like your mixes are just absolutely incredible. And you've worked with so many legendary bands. Do you have a favorite album that you mixed? And I know that's a maybe a hard thing to pick, but
well, it would have to be Return to Metalopolis, what I just did, just the remix of that.
awesome.
And again, people can hear it next year. I'm not sure exactly when, but sometime in 2025 it's going to be released. And it's brilliant. It's awesome.
Yeah,
It
Chris
was
could
just
not
Chris and
stop
his
talking
brother.
about it.
It was Chris and his brother, and they just tore it up. They're just both so good. So, um, and that album just really special to me. And yeah, again, I feel really privileged and grateful to be able to go back and do it again with in the digital domain with all the new stuff. And um yeah, yeah, I'm a much better mixer now than I was back then. I was a pretty good producer and a good recording engineer, but my mixing skills were weak, I think, and I'm much better at it now. So,
What do you think is the most valuable thing you learned as a producer throughout your entire journey doing it?
um, well, uh, I think to trust the bands, to understand that the bands are the best authority on how they should sound. They and trust them and go with them, and don't try to be something else. Don't try to. We want to sound like Metallica, or we want to sound like Megadeth. It's like, no, 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 no. Don't even go there. Just do your thing and figure out what that is, and make sure it's real and authentic, and let people come to it.
Yeah, for sure. And that's always the best music. When people try to force their sound, you can definitely tell. You can tell right away on
It
a
it
record.
just doesn't work. All the people that are successful, um, I did lots of thrash bands, and not all of them turned out to be great records. There were some mediocre ones in there, and but all of the great ones, definitely, they came in, they were original, they were true to themselves, they did exactly what they wanted. They didn't listen to anybody's advice from the record label or managers or they just fuck that. Wiener band, we know what we're doing, and this is what we're going to do. And I would work as hard as I could to realize the sound they were looking for on the tape. Back then it was tape. So
Awesome. Awesome. Now, you recorded a lot of punk bands too and metal. Did you have a different approach to recording and mixing a punk band opposed to a metal band, or was it all the same approach?
it was all the same. It was just make everything sound really, really as good as possible. Make it hit hard and sound real. Um, Steve, when we first did it, he said we were doing, high fidelity punk, that our stuff sounded good. We did, we were doing social distortion, right? But it sounded good. And uh no, no, and I had the same thing. It's like um there was a thing that came up early on and it went away, but you would have metal bands and punk bands, and they didn't really get along. They weren't really, and there were fights and stuff at some of the shows and things. But the punk guys would come in, and somebody in the band would say, "Oh, I don't want to do that. That's not like that's not like real punk." And it's like, no, 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 fuck that. Let's do that. That's fine. We're certainly not going to do it because it's not punk enough, or it's not real punk, or some ridiculous bullshit like that. And the metal guys would do the same thing. They'd think, that's not metal enough. That's too wimpy, or that's too pretty, or whatever it was that they thought it wasn't real metal. And I'm like, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
We decide what real metal is, and what real punk is. But so no, my attitude was exactly the same. What are you guys trying to do? Let's make you sound as good as possible. And
Cool.
yeah.
Awesome. Now, you famously worked with Death as well, Scream Bloody Gore, which is a staple death metal album. And one of, even though I believe Seven Churches is the first,
Mhm.
this is one of the first like real, like, especially vocally and everything. What was your reaction to hearing this music for the first time? Was it at a rehearsal? Was it a tape?
No, they did send me a recording. I don't know if they were demos or what they were. Um, but pretty much I really got to know them in the studio. I didn't spend much time on, there wasn't pre-production or any of that. They just came in and played the stuff. And it was just Chuck and his drummer. Um, and I don't know, they weren't 21 yet. They were 19, 17. I think the drummer was 17 and Chuck was 19 or something like that. They were
So
very young.
crazy. That's so crazy.
But no, it was great. They were so good at what they did, and they knew exactly what they were doing, and they were so prepared. It was a really easy album to make because we just, you know, get the sounds, give them the right environment, the drums and the studio and stuff, and they just tore it up. And very hardworking, very industrious, and again, Chuck gave it 110% every time. Yeah, he did some of those screams he did. He would have to like go lay down afterwards for a few minutes because he didn't feel right after he did those. And then, I mean, man, he was into it. So,
One of the best. Truly one of
uh,
the best. How long did that album take?
um, it was like 3 or 4 weeks, something like that. Um, yeah, I think
Crazy.
3 or 4 weeks. I think it was about 10 grand, maybe 12 grand, something like that for the budget. And I kind of had a methodology where I would go to the big studio and record the drums, and I would rent the drums from this guy called a drum doctor. I don't know if you ever heard of him,
I
but
have not. The Drum Doctor.
Ross Garland but he's got a big company now. They're still there. But anyway, they would bring in drums and we'd rent them, and the drums, they would set them up and tune them, and they would create the kit that looked exactly like the drummer's kit. So when the drummer came in, he put his pedals on it, and it was just like his kit, only sounded great. And we didn't spend a lot of time getting drum sounds because they were good. Anyway, we do the drums in the big studio at Music Grinder, and then we go to a little place and do all the overdubs, and then we go back to Music Grinder and do the mix. So we'd spend half the budget on 2 days of tracking and 2 days of mixing, and then we'd spend 3 or 4 weeks in little studios that were much much cheaper. And but the combination you came out with something with really big time drum sounds, and then I mixed it on the Neve. It was Neve Studer. And have you seen the movie Sound City?
I have it's on my watch list. I have not, no.
Okay.
I know it's like the
Well,
ultimate.
the whole movie's based around this console, this Neve console that was in this the Sound City studio. But anyway, Music Grinder had an old Neve, and it sounded great, and it just worked great for metal and for thrash metal. You could hit it really hard, and it just loved it. And
Yeah.
it would distort a little bit, and it sounded better. So anyway,
That's awesome.
um, no, the most of those records were done. Yeah, like I said, $10,000-$12,000 budgets were typical, and I could deliver a pretty good record for that, and that's why they kept calling me. The bands liked it, the record company liked it, and I was a
Yeah.
terrible businessman, just awful,
What do
just
you mean?
awful. Well, I should have come away with some money, and I should have come away and I didn't.
You think you like undersold yourself?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I wasn't paying enough attention to what was. I just wanted to make records. I was totally obsessed with it, and um, yeah, yeah, yeah. I was a lousy businessman. I didn't do a good job,
Well, I think
but
it'll be good getting
whatever.
into it now, especially like you have such an amazing resume
Mhm.
under your belt, you know? It's just like
So
getting yourself out there, I think. It's the
yeah,
world's a lot different now in terms of like marketing yourself and everything. It's so annoying.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to start doing that a little bit, and um, I did have some really great experiences this last year or so. I've been going to some concerts. A number with Gene Hoglan. I did Dark Angel perform Darkness Descends in its entirety as a show, and I saw them do it in San Francisco, and that was like it's like this amazing full circle moment, where you go back and it's that album and they're doing it live. And then I got to do the same thing again with Gene with Death for All. They did Scream Bloody Gore in its entirety as a concert, and I was there in LA when they for the LA version of that, and it was awesome. It was really great to go and hear that. By the way, Gene and Steve DiGiorgio and I don't know Max Phelps and I can't remember the other guy's name, Alex somebody. They sounded better than the album live. They were those guys, Gene and Steve
Incredible.
DiGiorgio, they were just out of this world good. It was an awesome night. So
That's so awesome. Have you seen Megadeth as of recent?
um I went to see Megadeth in Phoenix in 2022. I've got a sister in Phoenix, and I went down there. I took my nephew, and that had some really cool moments because when they did Peace Sells, Dave got the audience to sing, and the whole room sang, and it was like
Yeah.
8,000, 9,000 people singing Peace Sells. I'm like, whoa, this is cool.
You're waving to him in the audience.
No, just like I didn't try to get a hold of Dave then.
Yeah.
I do. I'm gonna go ahead and put this out there here, so
Okay.
get around to Dave sometime. But next year I'm gonna approach Dave and see if he'll let me remix Peace Cells for the 40th anniversary edition that'll come out in 2026. So that's been my plan here for a few years. I've been working towards it, and I really feel like I'm getting close now to being able to really do it justice. So um, we'll see, we'll see. I'm going to talk to him next year. So
Very exciting, man. And I would kill to hear that mix, regardless of a collaboration or not. That is so sweet. Have you heard the remixes of that record?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
I think um, um, the Paul Lanny one I didn't care for too much. Dave's remix I thought was a little better,
Hmm.
definitely better, but I think there's still more there.
Yeah, for
So no,
sure.
Dave's mixes were definitely good. So yeah, see that's what I don't know if from a business point of view, if the audience will tolerate that many editions of that record, I just don't know. Dave will know. Dave will he'll have a good idea about that right away, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I think, the name, like I think the fact that you would do it is,
Hmm.
I like as a Megadeth fan, I am so sick of the remixes, the remasters, the
Right.
re-releases, but if you're doing it, I am fully for it. I don't care if it's an album you
Well,
haven't mixed originally or mastered. I would love to hear your take on
well, I'm
that record again.
I'm gonna. I think that the Chris Poland remix will be a good selling point, and that's going to be out next year. So Dave can put on the original and put on this one and go, okay, now give me the tapes, give me the files. let me do a couple of mixes and see what you think, and then he can decide what he wants to do. But I think I think there's something there. I think there's a possibility. I think he might go for it, but I just don't know yet.
I think there's a
So
chance. I would love to hear your take on Black Friday again. Like there's
mhm.
so much of that Chris stuff is so good. Like that
The
album
Good Morning
is,
solo.
yeah, the Good Mornings. Oh
But
man.
by the way, there's a note in there that he thinks, or it is a little flat, but he wanted to do it again. He wanted to do it solo again, and it bugs him when
Really?
every time he hears it because there's one note that's a little bit flat, and it's like it's a great take, you know. So anyway, and he gives me a little shit about it once in a while,
If this
but
works
it's all in
out,
good news. Yeah, it's all
yeah,
good. It's all
for
good.
sure. Oh, it's a fantastic record, and it's like, oh, it's practically perfect. I know that'd be so amazing, and I know this is even more of a stretch, but to even have Chris come in and maybe re-record that part just for his sake, I can't even tell you what note it is. Maybe if I
Yeah.
listen super closely with high fidelity headphones,
Well,
I
you
could
know,
maybe.
he does those killer bends, and he does them with first without vibrato, and then later there's some, you know, and so it's just one of those notes where he's reaching for it in the good morning part and the slow part at the beginning. That
Yeah.
he's he's always he's brought it up a few times to me, but it's all good. It's all good. He's really happy with the remixes that I did earlier this year. Um, so we've got all that ready, but I want to do it again with my new analog gear.
Yeah.
Because this
So
is in my new room. So this stuff is definitely. Um, I did some work for Leatherwolf, uh, Dean Roberts,
awesome.
and um, I mixed some songs in 22 and 23, and I just finished remixing one of the songs that we had done earlier, and you can hear them next to each other. And the old mix sounds good, but the new mix just sounds bigger and deeper and more depth to it and more, you know, it's just it's really when you just A/B them, you go, yeah, that one sounds better, you know.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just that simple. So I'm gonna do Chris's stuff again on this new year.
So exciting, man.
In the not distant future. And again, yeah, that one's coming out next year. I'm really excited about that. You,
Metalopolis. And go
you
ahead.
should get both of us to do an interview when we release it. So
It's so funny you mentioned that because Chris said the exact same thing when I talked to him. Originally, we were going to have you join us.
mm,
But we decided to do like just have him solo, and then I was going to do you solo, and then do like the three of us to just talk about just that record.
mm.
And he's been telling me it sounds better than it ever has, and it sounds almost completely different. I am so excited to hear this album. And when it gets re-released, are there any plans? I'm not sure if you know this, if it's going to be on physical media at all, like vinyl, CD, or is it
Oh,
just going to be a streaming thing?
no. There'll be a CD and vinyl. People are gonna want that stuff, you know. So
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah, yeah. No, you I don't know what he's gonna call it yet, but uh uh anyway,
Yeah, it is already called Return too.
right, Return
So,
to Metal
yeah, so
again, or
yeah,
I think you should just put the date on it, you know, Return to Metalopolis 2025, and then people will know immediately. It'll be right there in the title.
yeah,
That's the new
yeah.
one. But anyway,
Maybe change the art. I don't know.
Chris will
There's
figure it
something
out.
you can do. Yeah,
Chris will figure it
I have faith in Chris. Now that you're talking with Chris and stuff, and Chris is kind of in that camp right now with the Kings of Thrash guys. Have you thought
out.
about
Mhm.
maybe working with them? I know Ellefson's putting out music. I know Jeff Young is going to be teaming up with him to put out. They're doing like their own project, and they're going to be putting out music for that. Have you thought about maybe working with them at all? And have any interest?
Um, um, you know, the Kings of Thrash were here. I saw them here in El Paso. I'm in New Mexico, in kind of like Billy the Kid country. I just found out this
Cool.
is like big time Billy the Kid country here.
Uh-huh.
And and so I'm in El Paso and we talked and it was good. So and then I saw him again when Chris played with him, the first gig that Chris played with him in it was actually in Long Beach somewhere. But no, I would definitely be interested in that. I haven't approached them, but yeah, I should hit him up and say, hey, let me do some mixes for you. Call Chris. Call
Yeah.
Chris and he'll recommend me, you know. Or of course, you know, we can just give him the stuff. So um here,
Well, I'd
listen.
love to hear it, man. You're definitely what like maybe one you are one of my favorite producers and maybe favorite. So to hear that collaboration would just be excellent. And I just want to I heard this and I just want to clear the air on this. Did you almost produce Soundgarden's first record?
I did. I
Oh
did.
yeah?
I the management or the label, somebody flew me to Chicago to see the band live in Chicago and to hang out with them a little bit. And I did. And I thought they were just tremendous. And I loved the band and thought, you know, well, I said, we'll just do Led Zeppelin 1, you know, except it'll be you guys and it'll be great. And they're like, yeah, yeah, you know. And then we went to Seattle. I went to Seattle to meet with them like a third time. And I had just gotten back from Australia, and my girlfriend was unhappy with me being in foreign countries, um, and I was working on a record there, and I was back in my home studio at Music Grinder and everything, and I made the comment to the guys that I really wanted to do it in LA and do it at Music Grinder. And I said, it's just so great to wake up in your own bed and then go down to the studio um, and do your work. You know, it's just so comfortable. And they heard me say that and they went, that's really, really a good idea. We're going to do it in Seattle. And they hired
Well,
a different producer. So I just talked myself right out of the gig. I mean, it was I was in there. Yeah, I had it, and I blew it, not realizing that. So anyway, yeah, that's the
nowadays they're
story.
like
It's true. It is true.
nowadays it's like we're mixing in Japan. You're like, all right, I'm there.
Mhm.
Damn, that's quite unfortunate. But I think some of the people you've worked with are just absolutely incredible, and maybe it might not have worked out. So I don't know. I think already you have an amazing resume, and maybe down the line, you never know. Soundgarden, if you're getting your name out there, they might loop back around, and that would be a quite a nice full circle there, I think. I think you
Well,
would do great with Soundgarden personally.
um, yeah, it would have been. I'm sure it would have been great. Those guys are just such tremendous artists. It would have been good. You know, you can't go wrong with that kind of talent. Um,
Absolutely amazing.
I really am looking forward to putting out Chris's album next year, and then uh, if I get the opportunity to do Peace Sells, then I think that will get me a lot of business as a mixer. I'll get some real work, you know.
For sure, man. And it's so deserved for sure. Like you're one of the best producers. And I do time to circle back here in
Sure.
terms of commissions, and reaching out. You're saying it's best you have an official email and it's on Facebook.
I have a Facebook page, Randy Burns producer, and so you can find me there, and you can message me there, and it's through their business thing, so it's a little different. But you can send me a message or randyburnsmusic@gmail.com is my email address, and they can hit me up
Awesome.
there. Um,
Great.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I am looking for bands to do. I've got two or three things lined up right now. I'm doing more stuff for Leatherwolf. I'm doing a band out of Tacoma, Washington, called Acerbity, and they're kind of death metally thrash band, but and yeah, and I've got a few other things going, but a local band. There's a local band here, or at least Las Cruces, which is pretty close. Um,
Cool.
has stuff for me to mix, but I'm going to need work in the new year, so
Well, I'll have
um,
that all linked in the
ready.
description for sure. And it was an absolute pleasure talking to you, man. And maybe we could down the line next year schedule something, me, you, and Chris. We can go song by song and really dissect the record and talk about the new mix and everything. I think that'd be a ton of fun.
Yeah,
But
um, absolutely.
yeah, but I just want to say thank you for taking the time, Randy, and it's been an absolute pleasure and an honor. So thank you.
Welcome. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I've been Brandon Battick, and this is Disturbing the Priest.